everyone, my name is Amber. Welcome to my channel, Amber Reads Romance. Today I am here with another vlog for you guys. I am continuing my Rina Kent journey. I have decided this last year, or maybe even longer, it's been going on a while, to read Rina Kent's backlist because I really want to read her current series, which is like that God of Malice series that is just blowing up. But I wanted to read their like parents and all the other characters first because it is a second generation one. So that's kind of what started this whole thing. But I've been going a while with this, so I do have a lot of vlogs you can watch if you are interested. I have them on my vlog playlist. Soon, hopefully, I will make a Rina Kent one because it's going to be a lot of videos. But let's go ahead and dive into what I'm going to be reading in this vlog. Okay, guys, so I am going to be reading 3 books in this vlog, and they are the rest of the books, I believe, in the Sin series. I'm not sure if that's what it's called, or Empire. I'm sorry. I should have looked that up. But anyways, the first book is Twisted Sin, and I'm very excited for this one because it's Nox's romance. And we were introduced to Nox way back in my reading journey, where, you know, it was the Royal Elite series. The first 3 books were about Aiden and Elsa. And we're introduced to Nox in that because he ends up being like Elsa's adoptive brother. And, you know, of course, there's lots of reveals that happen in that series, but we learn about what happened to Nox, and he was abused badly as a child by Elsa's mother, and like the father ends up kind of taking them in after the fact. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on in that series. It's crazy. At least the first 3 books. So I was excited that this is Nox's romance because I loved him. This is set in America. He's a lawyer now. We were already introduced to this firm in the first book, and he like moved to America. He's British because that series takes place in the UK. And so I was really excited. Plus, Daniela had previously said that this is one of her favorite books. So I'm super excited to read this one. And I'm hoping it's going to turn things around because my last 3 books were like a fail for me. I didn't love the first book in this series. Then I read a duet that was based in like this mafia, like the Russian mafia. And I didn't relate to it. It was like 3 books back to back of Rina Kent's that I didn't really enjoy. So I'm hoping this turns it around for me. So I did already start this, so I'm about 20% in, and I do gotta say I'm enjoying it. Rina Kent's writing will suck you in. It gets you hooked really fast, so she's never has issue with that. She always usually gets my interest. So I am really enjoying Nox. You know, he's had major trauma as a child, so he's very controlled and smart and intelligent. And you know, she does say this isn't really one of her usual dark romances, so I'm excited to see where she's going with this. But the reason that it was good that I read that Mafia duet was because the heroine was introduced in that, because she is like the daughter of the heroine in that book's uncle. And so she's like, I believe her cousin, if I'm remembering their family ties correctly, but it's in the Russian Bratva. So she's been very sheltered and controlled her whole life. And she basically does not want to be forced into a marriage. And she, in that book, like all of a sudden, the last book, she just disappears and we don't know what happened to her. And so in this, it opens up at her at a bar, and she is, I believe it was in New Jersey. And she is her goal of the night is trying to lose her virginity because that's her hot commodity as like, you know, a Russian Bratva princess. And so she doesn't want to be married off and forced into this, so she decides to lose her virginity. She runs into Nox at the bar, and they immediately like hit it off. He's very intense. He's very hot. He's got a British accent. He's dominant. They end up having a one-night stand, and let me tell you, this one-night stand was freaking hot. And I didn't mind that it already starts off, because I actually like one-night stand books because it starts off with the sex, but then we have to grow to them being together later. So I do enjoy those. So this was a super hot one night stand. She seems very submissive because he would just tell her, like, get on your knees, and she would instantly do it. She was like very into his commands. He's a very like rough sex guy, and he tells her, like, you're not a virgin, right? And she's like, no, like, why would you ask me that? She's a virgin. And he's like, I don't do virgins. So she's just like, hopefully he doesn't notice. So they have a pretty rough sex and hot good time. She passes out. She wakes up later. They're in bed together, and she kind of like sneaks out. In this interaction, she did like, he was like kind of ripping her dress off. So like she had this special, I think, butterfly pendant that was like really important to her, and it like flew off. So I think he ends up having it, and probably that'll come into play. I don't know if it'll be a big deal, but I'm sure he'll hold on to this butterfly pendant of hers. So anyways, they don't see each other for a few months. She has basically changed her name, set up a secret identity for herself. She's kind of a good hacker. She's really smart. She can do anything on computers. And so she kind of sets that up for herself, and she gets a job at his firm in the IT department. And she dyes her hair black because she had like this like really bright blonde, like bleach blonde type of look. So she ends up dyeing her hair black, wearing these big clunky glasses and baggier clothes to try and cover up who she is. But the instant he sees her in the office, he knows it's her, and he's like, what the fuck? Like, and she gave him her real name by accident when she was passing out during the one night stand. So she told him her name was Anastasia. And then at work, she's going by Jane, I think it is. And so he's like, who the fuck are you? What are you after? What are you up to? So he doesn't trust her, and he's pretty like going after her. So, and she can't tell him anything. She doesn't want her family to find her. If they found out he like took her virginity, they would kill him. It's a different level. Now, it hasn't fully been revealed in this that she's the Russian, mafia princess. But I mean, we knew who she was because we were introduced to her in the previous duet. So that might be a surprise to readers who hadn't read that. I don't know. But it's pretty obvious at this point. So right now I'm about 20% through, and he just followed her into this supply closet. He was like, why is she on this floor? She's IT. She doesn't belong here. And he follows her, and she's like has her computer, and she's doing something in there. So he's like calling shenanigans, trying to get to her computer, and she's like holding it away from him. So now they're like on the ground together, and he's gonna mess with her. So of course we're gonna have a little dubious consent mixed in, which I love. So anyways, I have to get going because I'm supposed to go into work right now, and I just wanted to get this in really quick before my day started. But I'm enjoying it so far. It's a good first 20%, and I'm excited to see where we go with Knox because I really do love his character. All right, you guys, I've already talked for almost 10 minutes here. So let's go. And I will check back in with you. Hopefully when I'm like halfway through, we'll see how I'm going. I don't want to do too many check-ins on these videos because I have 3 books to go over. All right, I will check back in with you in a bit. Hey guys, just doing a quick check-in. I'm about halfway through the book now, and it's Saturday later in the evening. I need to make dinner, and so I thought I'd just do a really quick check-in. I actually took a nap, which was really nice, and then I just have been catching up on the reading a little bit. So I'm really enjoying this book. Much better than the last 3 that I read, so I am appreciative of that. I really love Knox's character. But basically Knox and our heroine, Anastasia, I think it's Anastasia. How did I forget her name already? Anyways, when he finds her in that supply closet, things kind of escalate where he gets kind of frisky with her. They kind of fool around, and he basically lets her know like he's not done with her, and he wants to know who she really is and about her past and everything. And so it starts these kind of interactions where they fool around. She's not willing to give up any of her past or the truth about her. But like each interaction, he becomes more obsessed with her. He's really like, they finally do have sex. And he's really into rough, pretty like brutal sex, and she gets off on it. So he really like feels attached to her. He's never really wanted to be in a relationship or anything. But he's really drawn to her. So like he continues to have sex with her without like a condom on. I think the first time he did it, she was upset, and he was like, well, just get the morning after pill. And like the next time he's like, you better be on birth control. And she said she got the shot, and he was like, good, because there's like nothing between us now. So anyways, I'm really loving their dynamic. You know, what happens too is he shows up at her house one day. Actually, first, there's an important case going on where she noticed that this one girl that she could clearly see has been abused was trying to go to him for like this civil case and everything. There's also a criminal case going on because her father abused her sexually and physically. And so she was actually coming out against him. And Knox basically denied it, said, no, I'm not taking this case because it was hitting too close to home for what he went through as a child, because him and his twin sister were taken by Elsa's mother. And she kind of like pretended like they were her son that died, and was like really abusive and starved them and did like horrible things to him. So he has a lot of trauma from that time in his life. So he never wants to take like any cases that kind of bring him back to that PTSD or those feelings. So he like first says no, and Anastasia, Jane, basically tries to talk him into taking it. And she's like, I know what somebody that's been abused looks like. That happened to my mother. And so she kind of brings up stuff about her mother being abused, and everything like that. So she's giving little hints about who she is and a little about her history to him. So he decides to take the case, even though it's hard for him. But like one day when he's practicing, you know, doing prep with the girl, I think her name was Sandra, on like, you know, answering questions, cross-examination, he starts to get kind of like, it's probably triggering to him with his past, and she can see that, like she can see he's having issues. So he gets really frustrated that she's like the only one that can see in him, you know. And so he shows up at her house later that night, and they end up having some rough, angry sex. And then ever since that night, though, like he continues to come back. So like it's like weeks of him spending pretty much living with her, spending every day over there. They like cook together, even though she's horrible at cooking. They like start watching movies, and he had never read Harry Potter, so she starts reading to him. So it's like their relationship. Sorry, my mom's cat's meowing out here. Their relationship gets a lot more intimate, and they're really like boyfriend and girlfriend, even though that's not what they're calling it. So eventually, like, they're hooking up in the supply closet, and his best friend Daniel, who's kind of like the player, basically waits it out and catches her and tells her like, oh, well, we share, because they have had three-ways in the past. And he was saying, oh, we should share you, and blah, blah, blah. And she's saying like, no. So she gets pretty upset finding out like about that, and then wondering if Knox would want to share her. So she ends up kind of avoiding him and going dancing with her friends. And he shows up there, and they kind of get into it together. And he finds out that that's what happened. And he was like, I would never share you with anybody. Like, if anybody even tries to take you, you're mine. Like, I don't want to share you. And so it's a really sweet moment between them. And like, they keep having these moments too of like her wanting to know what happened to him, and like what happened to about his mother, because his mother was a prostitute, and he's let these little things out. And he's like, I'm not going to tell you deep stuff about myself when you won't even tell me who you are and what's happened to you. And so she kind of lets him know, like, you know, we can put that in the past for now, and one day when we're ready, we can get to it, to our pasts. So this is a dangerous thing too, because she has been brought onto that case because she is like a familiar, like friendly kind of face for Sandra, and she feels comfortable with her. So she's had to go to like the court, to the hearings and everything. And this guy that they're going against is super rich and has ties to the Bratva, which is her family. She did have a run-in with a couple of the characters from that mafia duet, and luckily they didn't recognize her. I don't know, maybe they did. But she's super nervous being out because she doesn't want anybody to realize who she really is, but she really wants to help Sandra. So I'm sorry, my mom's cat will not stop meowing in the background. Anyways, that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm really enjoying it. I think their relationship, we're actually seeing them fall for each other and be more intimate, and it's not just sex like I kind of felt like the other books were. So I'm appreciating this one a lot more. I will probably check in with you guys once I finish the book. So probably do it tomorrow. So I'll see you on the next clip. Hey guys, so I'm back with my final check-in for Empire of Sin. I really loved this romance. So I'm going to just briefly cover the last half because I already talked a lot about this book and we don't want too long of a vlog. But what ends up happening is they are pretty settled in their relationship. They're pretty good together. They've really fallen for each other. They haven't said I love you or anything yet, but of course what's going to happen is her family is going to find her. Now it's actually, I think his name's Kirill. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right. And then one of the scarier ones, Adrian, are the ones, I think it's Adrian. I might be wrong. Sorry, guys. But they are the ones that end up, like, she comes home from work one day and they are in her apartment. And so she's freaking out because if it's Adrian, I hope I'm not saying that wrong. He's like going through her computer. He's kind of like the genius, quiet, scary one out of her Russian family. And he's looking at her computer and he kind of like knows more about what's going on. This is where she realizes that her cousin, who was the heroine from that mafia duet, her father, Anastasia's father, who's the head of the Bratva, they have all covered up for her because when she went on the run and changed her identity, she stole a lot of money from the Bratva, so she could be killed for that. So they basically covered for that and replaced the money so that nobody would know that she stole money from the Bratva. But now they're here and they know about that. And her father doesn't know where she's really at. But they were going to Kirill's going to take her back. But Adrian basically says, no, she needs to stay where she's at because one of their, the people that they use as a supplier, some kind of thing, I can't remember what, is the guy that's, being accused of assaulting his daughter and all the current case that Knox is working. And so he wants her to stay around, spy, whatever. And he basically threatens Knox's life. And so she goes into panic mode when they leave. She's packing up and Knox is not having any of it. He makes her come stay at his place. He's like, you need to tell me what's going on. I've let it go on long enough. But you need to tell me what is happening, what's going on with your family. Why are you afraid? Of course, as she's about to talk to him, probably not, his family shows up. So his twin sister, Teal, we see Elsa, who is, these are all the people from the Royal Elite series. And so they come, stop by and visit and everything. So, things aren't going good for her. She's being followed around by Kirill's man. And, she's just super paranoid. They even send her a video of them or pictures of Knox getting out of his car in a parking garage, and there's a bullseye red light on the back of his head. So she is freaking out because she knows his life is in danger. She doesn't want to ruin the case. She knows nothing good can come of her in his life. So at one point she was in the supply closet and she kind of invited his friend in there, who had teased about sharing and stuff. He ends up coming up there to see her because she tries ending it with him a couple times. She does tell him it's over. He's like, I'm not having that. It's not over. I'm not done with you. You can't, he will not give her up. But he walks in on the supply closet and it looks like a bad situation, but nothing happened. It just looked bad. But she wants him to she wants him to think there's something that happened so that he'll let her go. And so she tells his best friend what really who she really is so that he'll not tell him the truth. And then she basically changes her hair back to being blonde, takes out her contacts, gets rid of her fake, baggy clothes, and goes back home. And her father is infuriated because he sees it as a huge betrayal of him and the Bratva. And so he kind of puts her under house arrest, takes her phone, all this kind of stuff. So Knox eventually wins the case because she does make a thing with her dad. Like, her dad wants her to marry one of his men. And so she doesn't want to, but she's like, if I marry him, like, you got to stop trying to get involved in this case and ruining it for Knox. And so he agrees to that. So Knox wins the case, and eventually he finds out who she really is because his best friend tells him now that everything has kind of died down. And he basically shows up at like a party that's being held at the Bratva. He got an invite by a woman, and he shows up and finds her there. And he's like adamant, like, we're together. There's a great scene where they go up and sneak up to her bedroom, and like he had always only had sex with her like doggy style, or with her facing away from him, because he couldn't handle the intimacy because of how he was prostituted out by his mother and the trauma that he had as a child. And so she was like, she knows about it now because her dad told her, and because he had him investigated. And so she like, lets him know she knows, and she wants the intimacy. She wants to look in his eyes. And so they actually have sex, like, face to face for the first time, and they make love, and it's like really sweet. But then they leave the room and her dad's there. So Knox is lucky he got away with his life only because he's smart. He has a ton of money that he's like willing to help invest in their company that they're trying to make go public and go be legitimate business. And so he ends up saying, like, I could do that. I'll invest all of my money. But I want to marry her. I want her to be my wife. So the dad thinks about it for a while, and they come to an agreement. And so they do end up getting married and everything. So it was a really great book. I loved seeing people from the Royal Elite series. We get to see lots of Ronan and Teal, Aiden, who's always a favorite. So I really loved this one. It was much better than, like, if you see my last vlog, it was, all three of the books were not great. So I'm so glad we're on a better roll here. Side note, I was about to start Empire of Hate, and that is his best friend Daniel's romance. And this whole book, they've been talking about, like, how Daniel hates blondes because there's one blonde that hurt him when he was, like, in high school or something. And so that's going to be that romance. But when I was looking at some reviews on Goodreads, Daniela actually said that the heroine in this book is introduced in Cruel King, which is like the 0 book. Like, so I never even read it because I read the Royal Elites, like 1 through whatever, but I never read Levi's romance. So that heroine and Daniel are introduced in that book. So I have to go back and read that book because Daniela said in her review that it makes it a lot more impactful, because I think she might be a villain in that book or something. So her turnaround and like arc might be better if I read that book. Plus, I found out later that the current series, The Gods of Malice and everything, the twins in that book, I think it's Brandon and Landon, are Levi's kids. So I definitely need to go back to that book. I don't know why I didn't read it when I first read the Royal Elite series. I think I started 1, 2, 3 and then realized there was a 0, and I was just like, whatever. So anyways, I'm going to have to read that first. So I might just read that book real quickly and then just give you a sum up of what I thought about it. And then we'll continue with this vlog because I got to read it before I read Empire of Hate. So I will read that. I think I just started right now, just read like the first couple chapters. So it's like I'm going back to high school after being with grown-ups again. So that's kind of weird, but I'm excited to dive back into the Royal Elite world anyways. So I will check back out with you once I finish Cruel King. Hey guys, so this is going to be really quick, I hope. I did finish Cruel King, which was basically book 0 for the Royal Elite series. I'm just going to quickly go over it because I have 2 more books still to go over in this vlog. But basically Levi, takes us back all the way back when they're in high school. And this is in the UK, so it's not really called high school, but that's kind of what it is. And he basically has been rebelling against his uncle, which is Aiden's father. And we all know Jonathan King is a pretty scary hard ass. He wants to play professional football, which is actually like soccer, but football over there. And he doesn't want to be under his uncle's thumb. So like in the beginning of this book, he's like has a run-in with the heroine, which is Astrid. And she's very like not part of the popular crowd, but she's best friends with Daniel, who ends up being our hero for this new book that I'm going to be reading. But they're best friends, and I gotta tell you, throughout this book, I love their friendship. Like, they're so great for each other. Daniel is so amazing, and it made him so much more likable than he is in, like, the current series where he's just this player lawyer. So I'm really glad I read this book. But she ends up, like, getting she gets drugged at this party, which comes into play later with certain character, and it's like she's on ecstasy, and I think coke was mixed in the shot, so she's all out of it. She runs into Levi. He's like willing to hook up with her because his father hates her or his uncle hates her father, but then he sees her on drugs, kind of kicks her out. She ends up like getting chased by guys because they were up to something bad, which ends up being Levi's crew, not his like good friends like Aiden and them, but some people he hired basically to do what he wanted because he wants to burn down his uncle's like vacation home. So she goes running away. She gets hit by a car. And then it's like a few months later, she's back at school. She had to do lots of rehab and a lot of stuff. But with her character, her mother and her gotten a really bad accident and her mom died. So there's a lot of trauma there. And she's kind of blocking what happened with her mom, deeper stuff going on. So I don't want to go too into it, but basically, Levi is worried that she's going to figure out, obviously he was the one setting fire to his uncle's house. He didn't have anything to do with her accident, but he wants her to put a stop to this police investigation. So he starts bullying her. And then the bullying leads to fascination, and he becomes obsessed with her. And so it's this bully push and pull, and they start to slowly kind of date. But then, of course, they're like the feuding family kind of thing, and secrets are revealed. So I really loved this because I loved Levi. He was super dominant. It was like a great, fun little like bully high school type of romance. I really loved the heroine. She was strong, but not like the annoying strong kind of heroine that drives me nuts. The big thing in this, obviously, was her friendship with Daniel, and I think it was so beautiful. And then Nicole, who is going to be the heroine in Empire of Hate, she is like the mean stepsister to her, to Astrid's stepsister. And a lot of stuff goes down where you find out the cause of Astrid's mother's accident was basically Nicole's mother. She's a psycho, and she had tried to like kill the mom because the dad was actually going to go back to the mom. There's so much more to this, but I just don't have enough time to go into it all. But basically, like, the mom was a psychopath, and she also wanted to get rid of Astrid. And so you kind of see why Nicole was such a mean girl and a bitch, because she had this crazy mom putting a lot of pressure on her. But during this book, there's this weird thing going on between Nicole and Daniel. And you find out that she was the one that actually had drugged, put stuff in the shots to give to Daniel, and the other shot was supposed to be meant for her so they could do E and like mess around, which is pretty bad. I don't know if we're gonna get flashbacks in this book, but that's like non-consent, like that's rape to drug him. And so I think they end up doing something. We don't know what happened in this book, just something bad went down. She ends up having to leave like right after this because her mom gets arrested and all this stuff goes down, and she ends up leaving. She was screwing this other guy, Chris, that was one of like the henchmen for Levi, that was like a total douchebag, and Levi was like kind of cutting off. And so who knows what's going on there, if anything happened with Chris. But I really loved this. I loved Levi and Astrid. I thought they had such an amazing connection. I felt their sexual chemistry. It was hot. I had a really great time. So I ended up giving this one 5 stars. And I do think it's really important that I read it because it did introduce Nicole as like the total mean girl, bitchy stepsister. And you know, you get to see more of Daniel, where he is actually like so supportive, such a good friend. He's like a ride or die for Astrid, and I just thought that was beautiful. And so I think I'm gonna like him a lot more, hopefully, in the book. So anyways, sorry, this is already longer than I wanted to talk, but I really loved it, and I'm so glad I read it and went back. And it was great to see Aiden before all the Elsa stuff goes down, because you could definitely see the psychopathic behavior of Aiden and him stalking and obsessing over Elsa. So that was really great too. So anyways, I will check back in with you once I get a little bit further into Empire of Hate, and we'll see if this Nicole has a redemption arc or if I'm still gonna hate her. Hey guys, so just want to do a quick check-in. I am about halfway through Empire of Hate, and I don't know how I'm feeling about this one so far. Because Daniel, I loved his character in Cruel King. I thought he was such a good friend and such a good guy. Like, even though he came off as like a player, but you know, he kind of felt like he was putting on like that kind of just attitude and just trying to pretend like he's more of a player than he was. But I'm guessing he was, because that's all he does now is fuck around. But now it's like he's really unlikable to me. And I was expecting to not like the heroine, because Nicole was such a mean girl. She did horrible things. You know, she like drugged him with like ecstasy. But I mean, when you see the flashback, it's like all a big mistake kind of thing. Even though she did want him to like take the shot with ecstasy in it, she never wanted it to get to his, you know, friend, her stepsister or anything. So I don't know. There's a lot of bad things that Nicole did, but she's really grown, and she has more of an arc where it's like she's taking care of this kid, and half the time you're like, who is this kid? I pretty much knew it wasn't her son, because he never called her mom. He always called her Nikki. So I was like, there's no way that this is her son, because he's calling her Nikki. So, but she never had a brother in like that book. So you kind of have to figure out, okay, well, did the mom like have an affair, or what happened? So we don't know yet, but I'm guessing it was like an affair. But she's also kind of like in a custody battle with the father, who really wanted nothing to do with his son this whole time, and he's back in London, and that's why she kind of had to leave London and go to the States. And I haven't even talked about what this book is about. Sorry guys. So in this book, it's basically Nicole, she needs work. She got a job as an assistant at his law firm, and he basically saw her when she was like doing the interview process and stuff, and he hated her. So in the previous book, it's mentioned a lot how he won't have sex with blondes or hook up with blondes because of this mysterious blonde from his past that totally fucked him over, and he hates. And so he hates all blondes, which I think is just a little over the top. But anyways, so he sees her, and he like basically makes it so they hire her for sure, even though she didn't have a lot of experience. And he requests her because it's basically his goal to be an asshole, to make her life living hell. There's like a 3-week trial period where she has to see, you know, work her butt off and see if she can get hired. And the amount of shit this guy does to her is so cruel. The way he treats her is cruel. And I get it, like she was a villain kind of and a bad guy in the first book, but it makes him just come off worse. And so I don't really like his character that much in this book, because for 50% of this book, that's all he's doing. Even when he finds out about her brother and stuff, he's like still cruel. He ends up like firing her at the end of the 3 weeks. And she's devastated because she needs this job. She needs steady employment because now that father is coming after her little brother and she needs custody. And I'm guessing he was pretty abusive. There's a thing where like, the heroine from that first book, Astrid, her father had run into her like years ago, and he saw her with a baby, which is obviously probably her brother. And she had like bruises on her face. And then after that, she just disappeared and she like left London. So Then he decides, okay, you can still work for me, but like we need to get sexual for it. So he basically asks for sex in exchange for the job, and it was just so fucking disgusting. So I don't know. I don't really like his character in this book. Like, I get that she was a bad guy, but like, you're being worse. And she knows, and what's so sad is she is like this unrequited love for him. She was obsessed with him since she was like, I think 8 years old. She's been obsessed with him, and he always looked at her like the snobby, bitchy girl. And she was, but she was kind of putting on a facade that her mother forced her down her throat. And so you get to have more of empathy for her. But you realize she's been obsessed with him for years, and he always treated her like nothing. And then she was trying to be part of his life for all those years in school. And then Astrid, her stepsister, comes in, and he meets her once, and they become best friends. And so it was like devastating to her. And she's like, how come he doesn't see me? And all this stuff. He does call her Peaches because one of the times when she was younger, she ate peaches because she loved them, even though she was allergic. And she like almost died from this. So he always calls her Peaches. Like, she knows things about him like that nobody knows, like about his like aversion to food. He seems to kind of have an eating disorder where like he had walked in on his dad, like, I don't know, doing sex stuff with like some random woman with food items. And so he has like this aversion to food. I don't know. It's weird. Anyways, so they finally like settle on where he's letting them kind of like stay at his house, but I don't know if they stay there full time, but most of the time they're there. And you know, he's getting to know her younger brother, so it's all this stuff, but he's still being a dick to her at the same time. And it's like they have the biggest miscommunications. Like, he doesn't get that she like didn't tell on him about like things in the past, or make like, I don't know, he just, it's a constant miscommunication between them. Instead of them just talking things out, it's like them being petty and I hate you and arguing and treating each other like crap. So I'm not really sure how I feel about it so far. Then she walks in on him jerking off, and so he has her give him a blowjob. He's like, prove, like, because for some reason he thinks she's disgusted by him, even though she's been obsessed with him for years. And he's like, prove you're not disgusted to me. And so he makes her like give him a blowjob. And then he's like, okay, if you do good, like, you can get your one wish or whatever. And then all of a sudden after the blowjob, he like, she actually enjoyed it. And you have a feeling like she hasn't had sex in like years. Like, I don't think she's sexual at all. And oh, by the way, she did lose her virginity to him at that party when they did the ecstasy way back in high school. And then he kind of like, he always abandons her for Astrid. So you wonder why she has issues with Astrid. Anyways, so like, then he goes to like get on top of her, and she freaking freaks out, is clawing, kicking, trying to get him off of her. So you just know that she probably was most likely raped. And it makes me wonder, because in The Cruel King, like, Astrid found her having like sex with Chris, which was like this total douchebag, in that book, like in the pool house. And I'm kind of wondering, was he having sex with her? Was he raping her? Or maybe he did later, and he's like, because I think Chris had a lot to do with her situation. I don't know if maybe he had an affair with her mom. These are wild things that I'm jumping to. I'm probably way off base, but I think definitely she has been sexually assaulted. And then is he kind about it? No. So I don't know. I hope he turns it around, because right now he's very unlikable. But I gotta hurry and get to work, because I need to get on the road. So I will check it back in with you probably when I finish the book. Hey guys, so I have finished Empire of Hate, and it was kind of a tough go for me. I didn't totally hate it, but I had a lot of issues. So I think in my last video, I may have been giving like my theories and stuff about Chris and her Nicole being sexually assaulted. You know, we do get the reveals about what really happened to her. But before I get to that, I was very frustrated with this book because I really didn't like Daniel. I thought his character was completely ruined from how much I loved him in Cruel King. Like, he was such a good friend to Astrid. He seemed like this amazing guy. And in this, he never stops being cruel to Nicole this whole book. And it's just kind of stupid, the reasons that he was cruel to her. So, like, they're like fooling around at this point, like, which I kind of thought was disgusting, how he'd be like, oh, you can keep your job with me if you suck my dick or you do this. And it just made him like ick to me. And then so they end up being kind of like sexual, doing stuff together. But before they have sex fully, like at one point she was like, well, I need to know that you're gonna be just with me, that we're exclusive. And he refuses to give that to her and is a completely huge dick about it, and he's hurtful, and it's just sad to the point where he was like, oh, well, I'm going to a charity event and probably gonna have like an orgy or hook up with somebody else, so peace out, kind of behavior. And this poor girl, like, she is the one that I thought I would hate in this book. And I really dislike Daniel because he literally goes to this charity thing, goes to like a room with this chick to like hook up. And I'm not supposed to be irritated by this guy just because he can't get hard for her and he can only get hard for Nicole. It was disgusting. And then, of course, Nicole shows up to like stop it. And it's like, this is the part of the problem that I had when I read the first book in this Empire series, where it was like the dad's best friend thing. The girl was infatuated. It's like the unrequited love. I hate that when it's from a woman's perspective, like the woman's unrequited love for the man, because they just come off desperate. Like, here Nicole goes out of her way, shows up to this event and like stops him from hooking up. And they're still almost getting sexual. And he's kind of like, yeah, I was going to hook up with her. Like, total asshole behavior. So I was like, dude, have a backbone. Then he like basically starts to get physical with her, like sexual. And she kind of goes into PTSD with her like sexual trauma. And she kind of like is kind of in a daze, like, and she says like, don't hurt me, please don't hurt me, blah, blah, blah. Like, in her mind, she's in that place. And he's like, who's hurting you? Because he's been trying to get the truth out of her about what happened to her, but she hasn't told him. And so he kind of manipulates her being in a traumatic episode to get the truth out of her, which is just, And so he finds out that Chris had raped her. So lo and behold, I was right. Chris did actually rape her. And she was trying to use him to get Daniel's attention, and it backfired on her, and so she got raped. She had like a concussion because he beat her head against the ground so bad. And Astrid had walked by and seen her, but she didn't know she was getting raped. And then the kicker for this whole thing is that Nicole, after this horrible event, feeling dirty, feeling used, feeling devastated, all the things, the horrible things she was going through, who did she go to first for help or for affection or anything? She went to Daniel, and he was like drunk because Astrid had said she saw her Nicole with Chris, and so he got wasted because she like cheated on him. And his whole cheated on him feelings, you never gave her the time of day. You always told her she was a bitch and you wouldn't be with her and treated her like crap. So you guys weren't together. So if she hooked up with Chris and it wasn't rape, you still had no reason to be mad. Anyways, he basically treats her like trash when she just got raped. Of course, he doesn't know, but does he listen to her? He basically tells her he hates her and that, he's done with her, and he kind of like throws her out, and there's like this girl there. And so it was so horrible. And then even now, as he's like in the current timeline, realizing what he did, does he fully apologize? No. The next day, he treats her like shit again. And his view is, I don't want to make her feel like I pity her. But hell, dude, you need to be groveling at her feet and apologizing and being a good guy. And is he? No. But he picks them up, basically forces her to go to London, which she did not want to go back there because Chris is there. And he forces her to go with him for work stuff. Really, he wants to, go after Chris. And so he has this guy in the that has connections with the Bratva. He's married to one of the Bratva people. And we've seen him in that Bratva duet. And he's, basically a hitman. So he kidnaps Chris and he tortures him and does stuff to him and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, my point being, you guys, I'm already ranting too long about this. I did not like Daniel's character because he treated her like shit. Then they are kind of almost like this mini family with her brother and him. And he still goes back and says cruel things. And he has no reason to treat her like that anymore. She's an adult. She was a mean girl, but it was her defense mechanisms and things she had to do for her mother. And Daniel treats her like crap for all of this book. And then she thinks they're going to be together. She has to go to this dinner with Astrid and, the Levi and people that all hate her. She does reunite with her father. And so what she tries to do for him, because he hates his mother for her being a doormat to his father. You're basically your father, dude. And he's estranged from his brother. And so she sets up a dinner for them to all be together. And he's infuriated by it. And he basically tells her that they're done. And he leaves her. And it's just horrible. He ends up she end up giving him this box of all this stuff that she saved, pictures of them, any little thing, the peach that she ate the first time where she almost died with him. This poor girl has been so obsessed with him and pining after him for years, and he just treats her like crap. So that's my big problem with this book. I don't know what I'm going to rate it because I do think it was an amazing arc for Nicole. I think that she was amazing. That you took the mean girl that I hated in Cruel King and I was rooting for her in this. But I didn't like the hero. I thought he was a total douchebag and he treated her like shit. Where was the guy from Cruel King? There needed to be a point, halfway through at least, where we start to see the churn of him treating her right and trying to woo her. But that doesn't happen. He literally leaves her, gets stabbed, and then by somebody that Chris sent after him, which was just so random. And then, then he's oh yeah, we're together. And it was just, it felt very rushed when he'd been treating her like shit for 90% of the book. So I'm pretty disappointed because I really did like his character a lot in Cruel King. And so I'm kind of bummed out. It was cool seeing Astrid and her kids, who I think are going to be big parts of the God of Malice, that whole series, Legacy of the Gods, I think it's called. So I'm excited that I read it because I do want to have a better connection with the second generation. But I was pretty let down with this book. So I'm thinking it's going to be a 3.5 star because of Daniel, maybe 3 stars. I haven't rated it yet, but I'm pretty disappointed in it. So anyways, I just realized I thought I didn't my arc was late coming. I already had it for an arc that's due, I think, not tomorrow, but the next day, and I haven't started reading it yet. So I'm gonna have to pause on this, start reading that arc, and then I will get back into the last book for this vlog, which is gonna be a long ass fucking vlog, and that's gonna be Empire of Lust, which is gonna be King's book with Aspen, I think her name is. So I can't wait to read that one. Hopefully it'll end on a better note than this book left, because I was pretty frustrated. All right, guys, I will check back in with you in a bit. Hey, guys. So, big mess up on my part. I was editing this vlog finally. It's taken me forever to finally get time to vlog it. And it is a long vlog, so I'm sorry. But I couldn't find the clips for Empire of Lust anywhere. I don't think I put them on my cloud. I have limited space on my phone, so I have to always back up things to my cloud and then get to them later. And I never did, I guess. So I don't even have those clips anymore. I'm really sorry. This is kind of a mess. But if you want more thoughts too, I'm just going to briefly go over how I felt about it and a little bit of the plot because it is one of my favorites. I absolutely loved Empire of Lust, and it was in one of my top 5 books for the month of June. So I will link down below my monthly wrap up that just goes over my type 5 books, and it's listed there. It'll also be listed in one of my weekly, wrap up. So it's also there. But basically, I loved this book. This was Kingsley and Aspen's romance. Aspen and Kingsley had a one-night stand when Aspen was 15. He was a few years older. He didn't know she was only 15. But they kind of have a one-night stand. It was I think on Halloween because they had masks and stuff. And then of course she gets pregnant. She didn't know who he was, so she had no way of getting in contact with him. And she has a pretty abusive, bad home life. Her father, she actually helped get him in prison because he was a hitman for the mafia and very abusive. And so she helped out with that. And now she lives with her aunt and uncle or something, and they're pretty abusive. She ends up having the baby, but she thinks that the baby died. They bring her a stillborn and let her know the baby died when really her baby lived. And they ended up dropping it off with Kingsley, and he had assumed the mom had just basically abandoned his child. So he's been raising his daughter on his own. And then Aspen and him actually work at this law firm. They're partners. She's high up in the law firm. She's a badass attorney. She's worked her ass to get where she is. And then she recently in the previous books had found out about her daughter and then that her daughter was alive. And so in this, you have her trying to rebuild and build a relationship with her daughter. And her and Kingsley have a contentious relationship. There's a lot of hate stuff going on, obviously. And they decide, because their connection is insane, they have insane chemistry, that they are going to kind of hate fuck it out of each other. So it's a lot of enemies to lovers, hooking up, and all of that. But obviously it's just so much more. These two were so perfect together, and I really loved I liked Kingsley a lot, and he's very possessive and very into her. And so, but they are being secret because if their daughter finds out, that would be kind of weird. But there's a lot of suspense stuff going on too, because her dad is supposed to be getting out of prison. And so he's kind of threatening her. So she's worried about her life and obviously him coming after her daughter. So there's a whole third act thing that goes down. It's pretty exciting. I'm really summing this up quickly because I don't have enough time to go into all of it. I'm about to go to work right now. But I was editing this last night and I couldn't believe I couldn't find the clip. So I'm so sorry because I ended up really loving this book. I gave this one 5 stars, and I think for Chili's because it is super fucking spicy. They have amazing sex and a great connection. And I just loved seeing them find their happily ever after because Aspen has been through so fucking much. So anyways, I got to get to work. But thank you so much for watching this vlog. I don't even know if you're going to make it to the end because this is so freaking long. But anyways, thank you. I will see you guys on the next one where I'm going to be going over, I'm going back to Rina Kent's Mafia series, and I think it is on Adrian, who I brought up in this video. So anyways, thank you. Don't forget to subscribe, like, or comment, and I will see you guys on the next one.